And now to an NBC News exclusive report on who may be responsible for the medical mystery that sickened 26 diplomats and intelligence officials, all Americans, in Cuba almost 2 years ago. Intelligence officials now believe Russia is the leading suspect, and that it was no accident, according to 3 U.S. officials and 2 others briefed on the investigation. Backing up their suspicions, highly secret communication intercepts. Joining me now, 2 experts, Javon Zarate, former Deputy National Security Advisor to President George W. Bush, and an MSNBC senior national security analyst, and NBC's national political reporter, Josh Lederman, who did a lot of this reporting. Josh, you and the team have been working on this for quite a long time. I was down in Havana last October talking to intelligence officials there. There have been suspicions all along, but you really honed in on Russia being the prime suspect, according to these officials. No evidence, no proof, no ability to accuse Russia diplomatically, but they are the real suspects.
That's right. Russia had been a suspicion from the start due to their large presence on the island of Cuba, their advanced military capabilities. And as you first reported from Havana, even the Cubans had acknowledged that was a possibility. But now, Andrea, this is really more than a theory. This is the main suspect, and it's backed up with at least some information from some communications intercepts known as signals intelligence that officials tell NBC News that the U.S. government has developed. But, Andrea, it's not yet conclusive enough for the U.S. to take what would be a very dramatic step of formally accusing Russia of being behind these attacks. So the United States will continue to develop evidence, try to hunt this down, both who was behind it and exactly what the technology was used that has affected these diplomats.
And Josh and Juan, I talked to former Secretary John Kerry about this yesterday as to how Russia would be involved, and this is what he had to say.
Russia's been there the whole time, Andrea. That's not new that Russia is in Cuba or involved with Cuba. Russia has been the lifeline for them in many ways the entire period of time. So that is not going to change either.
And what he said is that Russia is there, but what's happened, Juan, is that to, first of all, safeguard our people there, they were pulled back, but it also fit, let's say, coincidentally or conveniently with the Trump administration's desire to change the Obama opening to Cuba and to basically shut down relations. And that's what's happened. And that we've left the field to Russia. So Russia is now all over the island in terms of intelligence gathering. And the U.S. is basically without any real weapons.
Yeah, I think the reality, Andrea, is that the Cold War never ended for many in the Cuban government, as well as parts of the Russian government, including President Putin. And I think the Russians have never really left Cuba, and they've sent signals to the United States that they were not going to be absent, not just from Cuba, but also Venezuela in the region. And this also comes at a time when Russia is much more aggressive, acting with impunity around the world. You have the nerve agent attacks in London. You have the cyber attacks on our electoral system, on systems in Eastern Europe. You have provocative military exercises happening now as we speak, the largest in recent modern memory in eastern Russia. And so this is another demonstration, if it proves to be right, if Josh's reporting is correct, that the Russians have taken yet another step to use asymmetric attacks to affect U.S. interests, whether it's sonic weapons, electromagnetic weapons, microwave weapons, whatever. You have the U.S. now having to confront yet another vector of attack from the Russians.
And one other thing that comes out of our new reporting is that this is not an accident. This is not a microwave listening device gone bad. This is an attack against American diplomats and intelligence officers, and it was targeting them.
Absolutely. I think there are a number of factors you look at, Andrea, as you know, any investigator or intelligence officer would look at. One, you have the number of attacks. So this happened in 2016. It also began to recur in 2018. And so this isn't just random. This also isn't just part of some rogue operation. We have indications it may have happened in China as well. You have the number of officials targeted, the facilities that are targeted, diplomatic facilities, intelligence officials. And so this is not an accident. And those who think this is some sort of rogue operation, I think, are operating in a fantasy world. This is targeted. This is led by a sophisticated, likely state actor. And if Josh's reporting is right, all roads lead back to Moscow on this.
And Josh, one of the things that you and I have both seen in covering Cuba for these years and the U.S. diplomacy or lack of it is that after that opening, there may well have been some hardliners. And even Secretary Tillerson was saying, basically, we're not blaming Cuba, but that Cuba, being the kind of government it is, must have known. And so they could have had some help. It could have been an inside job from some people in Havana who were not happy with the Obama Raul Castro opening.
That's right, Andrea. Officials who have been working on this investigation for the last year plus now tell us that they still don't think it would be possible for Russia to carry this out entirely on its own without at least some cooperation or some tacit consent from the Cuban government, given the fact that it's a small island. They have their own heavy surveillance on the island, and the fact that, you know, this would have to have been pretty really with the knowledge of the Cuban government for it to take place in hotels such as Hotel Nacional, essentially run by the Cuban government and other facilities like that.
Of course, Cuba has denied it. Russia hasn't commented overnight. One quick question, Juan, where were you on 9/11?
I was in the Treasury Department, the 4th floor, looking south over the Potomac River, watching the smoke rise from the Pentagon. We were watching what was happening in New York on the TV, and we were evacuated from the Treasury Department. We raced, there was a core group of us, raced to the Secret Service headquarters, and frankly, we're watching the sky, praying to God that another plane wasn't heading toward the Capitol or toward the White House.
And as we later learned, of course, one would have been had it not been for the heroism of the crew and passengers on the Flight 993. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you, Juan. Thank you, Josh.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.